So far, Eleanor grew up as the forgotten twin while Emily got everything: cars, attention, love. Why? Emily nearly died at birth, making her the quote, miracle baby. Eleanor got the scraps. But college? That's where things got really ugly. Eleanor worked 3 jobs to pay her own way while Emily lived like a princess on mom and dad's dime. Then graduation day arrived. Emily got a house. Eleanor got a lottery ticket. As a joke. They had no idea they'd just handed her the key to $100 million and the power to rewrite her entire life. What happens when the family scapegoat becomes the family millionaire? The revenge is about to be sweet. You know what's crazy about being the family scapegoat? You learn to survive on nothing, which means when you finally get something, you know exactly what to do with it. After years of Emily getting houses and cars while I got backpacks and bus rides, graduation day was supposed to be different. Finally, my moment to shine. Instead, Emily got a literal house as her graduation gift. Me? I got a lottery ticket. A lottery ticket. Like some cosmic joke about my worthlessness. They literally laughed as they handed it to me. But 6 months later, alone in my cockroach-infested Brooklyn apartment, working my butt off just to afford ramen, I decided to check those, quote, lucky numbers one last time. And guys, my world didn't just change. It exploded. That joke ticket? It was worth $100 million. The family that had dismissed me for 23 years was about to learn that karma has a sense of humor, and I was about to discover that revenge is a dish best served with financial independence. My college graduation day arrived after 4 long years of juggling classes, jobs, and the crushing weight of being forgotten in my own family. I had always told myself this moment would be a milestone worth every sacrifice. The one day when my parents would finally see me as their child no less worthy than Emily. I believed that after all those years of watching me pay my tuition, earn my own money, and take care of myself, they would at least give me fair recognition. I didn't dream of a house. I didn't dream of a luxury car. I only hoped for a gift with genuine meaning, a sincere word of praise, or simply a warm embrace from my parents, something that would show me they were proud of me too. That morning, the sky over New York was strikingly clear. Golden sunlight poured over the campus lawn where hundreds of students in black gowns and square caps gathered. The ceremonial music rang out brightly, blending with the cheers of friends and families. The air was thick with joy and celebration. I stepped out from the rows of seats, my heart racing, my hands trembling as I reached for my diploma. 4 years of struggle, the long nights washing dishes, the drowsy mornings in the library, all of it came rushing back in that single moment. I smiled, believing that at last I would be seen as equal to Emily. When the ceremony ended, students flooded the campus lawn to find their loved ones. I scanned the crowd and spotted my parents and Emily standing under the shade of a maple tree. They held 2 gift boxes wrapped in glossy paper with bright red ribbons. I walked quickly toward them, my heart swelling with hope that this time I would be honored just as much as my sister. My mother handed Emily the larger box first. Emily tore it open and gasps erupted around us as the metallic glint of keys caught the sunlight. They were keys to a brand new house purchased by my parents as her graduation gift. Emily screamed with joy, throwing her arms around them, her face glowing like a star stepping onto a red carpet. My parents beamed, their eyes brimming with pride. I stood beside them, waiting for my turn, my heart pounding with anticipation. Then my mother turned to me and handed me a small envelope. Surprised, I opened it, still clinging to the hope that inside I would find a heartfelt letter, or at least a small contribution to my future. But when I saw the lone lottery ticket inside, my chest constricted as though gripped by iron. I looked up, eyes wide, my voice shaking. "Mom, it's really just a lottery ticket." My mother smiled, completely oblivious to the humiliation in my eyes, and said lightly, "Try your luck, sweetheart. You never know. Maybe it'll change your life." Her words landed like a cold slap across my face. Change my life? After 4 years of proving I could stand on my own. Was that not enough to show them I was worthy already? Emily laughed. But for just a moment, I caught something in her eyes. Was it guilt? Then her voice hardened. Come on, Elle. You've always been the independent one. Mom and Dad know you'll figure it out. She paused, then added more quietly. Besides, you're too proud to accept help anyway. Laughter erupted around her, and I felt my face burn hot with shame and pain. My father, as if to end the tension, patted my shoulder lightly, but his words fell heavy as lead. You've always been strong, independent. That ticket suits you. I bit down so hard on my lip I nearly drew blood. In that instant, every expectation I had held shattered into pieces. I forced myself to hold back tears, to stand tall in the crowd. I didn't want my friends or professors to see me break, but inside I had gone silent. I remembered every night I studied until 3:00 the morning. Every penny scraped together from long shifts. Every time my mother told me, "You have to give way for your sister." And now, on the very day I was supposed to be acknowledged, I was humiliated publicly, with nothing but a lottery ticket. Emily kept clinging to our parents, flaunting the keys to her new house, posing for photos, her smile bright and flawless, while I stood there on the sidelines like a stranger. Some of my classmates glanced at me with pity while others whispered to each other. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my throat tightened until no words could come out. All I felt was the sting of 100 needles piercing straight into my heart. In that moment, a bitter truth settled over me. In my parents' eyes, I had never been a worthy child. The fact that I could stand on my own, provide for myself, only meant to them that I didn't need or deserve anything from them. Emily, the special daughter, was always the one worthy of every sacrifice, every investment. I folded the lottery ticket, slipped it into my pocket, and forced a strange smile so as not to cause a scene in the crowd. But inside, I had completely fallen apart. That was the moment I realized fairness from my parents would never come. And in that instant, a deep fracture split wide in the family bond that had already been fragile for years, a fracture that nothing could ever repair. I turned away, searching for a quiet corner to breathe, but Emily's laughter and my parents' praises still echoed behind me like knives twisting deeper into my chest. I knew from that day forward, I would never look at my family the same way again. What I couldn't have imagined was that the very lottery ticket they treated like a joke would become the turning point that changed everything. After graduation, I didn't return to Ohio with my family as they expected. Deep down, I knew that house was no longer a home, but a monument to favoritism and scars that would never heal. Instead, I packed my few belongings and rented a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, New York. It was less than 400 square ft. The walls faded and peeling, the ceiling stained with watermarks, and the single window looked out onto a narrow alleyway. But to me, it was the first place where I truly felt free. A space where every square inch was paid for with my own sweat and effort. I started working part-time at a small marketing firm as an administrative assistant. The pay wasn't much, just enough to cover rent, utilities, and some groceries. Each morning I squeezed into the subway with the rush hour crowd heading to the office and came home late when the city lights were already glowing. I sat at a desk by the window entering data, editing documents, sometimes brewing coffee for the team. There were days I felt utterly exhausted, but I kept going because it was the only job that allowed me to survive in this expensive city. Meanwhile, my parents hardly ever called. The rare conversations were brief and impersonal. "Are you doing well?" Quickly followed by "Emily's doing great." "Did you see her pictures on Facebook?" On my mother's profile, the updates were endless. Emily in her new house, Emily in elegant dresses, Emily at parties, Emily with her achievements. Each photo was captioned with words like, "So proud of our little girl." I saw it all, but never once did they mention me. It was as if I had vanished from the family portrait they presented to the world. The lottery ticket they gave me on graduation day still sat inside its envelope, tucked away in the drawer of my small apartment desk. I never threw it out, but I never once thought about checking the numbers either. To me, it was nothing more than a cruel joke, a clear reminder that my parents believed I deserved only luck, while everything certain and valuable was always reserved for Emily. Every time my eyes landed on that envelope, A lump rose in my throat, as if a voice inside whispered, "Maybe you'll never be the daughter they wanted." I remember coming home after long work days to an apartment, so quiet I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. I would lie on the old bed I bought from a second-hand shop, staring up at the stained ceiling. In my ears still echoed Emily's laughter from graduation day, my mother's soft voice saying, "Try your luck, sweetheart." I once believed that earning a degree, standing on stage to receive my diploma amidst applause, would finally earn me their recognition. But no. Even then, they didn't see me as something to be proud of. Often on my way home, I would see families out together, parents holding their children's hands on the way to dinner or sitting in cafes with eyes glowing with pride as they looked at their kids. And I would wonder, why had I never known that feeling? What had I done wrong to always be pushed to the back for the love that should have been shared equally to lean so heavily toward my sister? That question nagged at me, leaving me in tears on countless nights, crying silently into my pillow as if it were the only pair of arms I could cling to. Sometimes I tried to call home, hoping to hear even a single word of genuine concern, but those calls never lasted long. My mother would cut in to brag that Emily had been invited to a conference or to gush about her new designer dress. My father would ask just one question: "Is your job going well?" But his voice was distant, distracted, as if the question itself was only a formality. Over time, I realized that the more I reached for their care, the more their indifference pushed me away. One night when I opened the fridge and found only a nearly expired carton of milk and a small piece of cheese, I sank into a chair and let out a bitter laugh. I remembered our kitchen back home, always overflowing with food. But where Emily was always served the choicest portions, I was always the one eating last, scraping what was left. Now in this unfamiliar city with nothing but a scrap of cheese, at least it belonged to me. No one could take it away. I began keeping a journal, writing down every thought, every pain, every dream I hadn't dared to speak aloud. I wrote so I wouldn't forget who I was, so I wouldn't be erased by the invisibility my family had imposed on me. And in page after page, I always circled back to one question: if I didn't have this family, who would I become? Perhaps those lonely days taught me the most important lesson of all. I came to understand that love from parents doesn't always come the way we need it. Some families love their children only in the way they choose, not in the way their children truly need. And for me, that harsh truth had never been clearer. Still, I refused to let myself collapse. I kept waking up early, kept going to work, kept learning how to smile in the face of hardship. I knew that if I fell, no one would be there to lift me but myself. And I made a promise deep inside. Even if I never received full love from my parents, I would find my own worth, a worth no one could deny. I didn't yet know that the very lottery ticket I had dismissed as a cruel joke would one day open the door to an entirely different path, changing everything forever. About 6 months after graduation, while I was still struggling with my job at the small marketing company in my cramped apartment in Brooklyn, I unexpectedly received a call from my mother. Her voice over the phone carried the same familiar tone, half sweet, half commanding. "Eleanor, sweetie, we're having dinner at Aunt Sophia's this weekend. The family has some exciting news to share." Aunt Sophia was my cousin's aunt in Columbus, the one with the spacious house where family gatherings were often held. I was taken aback since it was rare for my parents to invite me back, but curiosity pushed me to reluctantly agree. The next day, I boarded a budget flight to Ohio, and Sophia's house glowed with lights. The front yard laid out with a long table draped in white cloth, lanterns hanging low, casting a soft golden glow. I walked in to find everyone already seated around the table, laughter filling the air. Emily wore a tight red dress, exuding confidence, while my parents sat beaming on either side of her. As soon as I sat down, my mother raised her voice with a practiced warmth. "Today is a special day. We wanted to share this wonderful news with you. A win." I glanced around, waiting, a faint hope flickering inside me, that perhaps this time they would think of me, offer me a word of congratulations, some form of recognition. But then my father cleared his throat and declared proudly, "We're going to sponsor Emily's entire wedding. A grand luxurious celebration at the biggest 5-star hotel in the city, followed by a honeymoon in Hawaii. We'll cover every single expense." Applause broke out from a few relatives nearby. Emily beamed, leaning her head against our mother's shoulder, her voice singing and triumphant. I knew you'd always support me. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I love you more than anyone in the world. I sat frozen, my fingers clutching the edge of the tablecloth while a storm surged inside me. Images flashed through my mind. The years I had fought alone, drowning in student debt just to make it through college. The nights I ate instant noodles in a dim apartment while Emily basked in endless comfort. And now, here were my parents announcing they would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on Emily's dream wedding when they had never once spared even a small gesture of support for me. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I lifted my head, my voice but firm. What about me? When do I get the family investment? The table fell silent for several seconds, as though no one could believe I had dared to speak those words. My father frowned. My mother shifted uncomfortably, and Emily quickly jumped in, her eyes gleaming with mockery. Emily's eyes flashed with something. Frustration? Fear? Eleanor, you've always been fine on your own. You don't need us like I do. You're stronger. Her words cut into me like a blade. My hands trembled against the table, my whole body shaking from anger and the weight of unspoken pain. I stared into her eyes, then turned to my parents. A strange calm washed over me, and my voice came out clear and unwavering. I looked at Emily, then at my parents, my voice steady and clear. Number. It's not because I'm not good enough. It's because I refuse to play the helpless princess game. But you know what? I'm glad I learned to stand on my own, because now I don't need anyone to buy my happiness. The entire table went silent. Emily's mouth hung open, my mother flinched, her eyes flashing with anger, while my father's face turned red as though I had humiliated him in front of the whole family. I could feel every gaze fixed on me. But strangely, I felt no fear. On the contrary, a wave of relief spread through me as if I had finally spoken aloud the words I had swallowed for more than 20 years. I slowly stood up. The screech of my chair dragging against the wooden floor echoed in the tense air. I placed my napkin neatly on the table, letting my eyes sweep across the relatives around me. Their expressions were a mixed shock, annoyance, even a few heads shaking in disapproval. I didn't add another word. I just gave a faint, bitter smile. Then I turned and walked straight out of that brightly lit room. No one rose to stop me. No one called after me. Not a single hand reached out. The door closed behind me, shutting in the awkward laughter and hushed whispers. Outside, the Ohio night air bit cold against my face. Yet my chest burned with heat. For the first time in my life, I had confronted them directly, no longer swallowing my pain in silence. I walked along the narrow path toward the parking lot, the dim streetlights stretching my shadow across the ground. Each step felt like cutting free from an invisible rope that had bound me for years. That night, I checked into a cheap motel and sat quietly in the small room, staring at the flickering neon sign outside the window. I didn't feel triumphant nor happy, only a deep sadness and a hollow emptiness. Yet beneath it all, I sensed a tiny seed of freedom beginning to sprout. I had spoken. I had walked away. And I had no idea that soon my life would shift in ways I couldn't imagine. All starting with the lottery ticket I had once thought of as nothing more than a cruel joke. When I returned from Ohio, I slipped back into the exhausting rhythm of New York. My little Brooklyn apartment was cramped and dim, but it was the only place that felt safe. At least there were no scornful glances from my sister or commanding voices from my parents. I spent my days working at the marketing firm, squeezing in extra freelance projects just to make ends meet. The room was always cluttered with books, papers, and clothes strewn everywhere. One weekend evening, 6 months after graduation, I was cleaning my cramped Brooklyn apartment when I found it. That damn lottery ticket, crumpled in my desk drawer like a forgotten insult. I almost threw it away. Again. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the exhaustion from another 60-hour work week. Or maybe I just wanted to prove to myself how worthless their, quote, gift really was. I pulled up the New York Lottery website on my ancient laptop. My fingers shook as I typed in the first number. Match. Coincidence, I thought. Second number. Match. My heart started pounding. Third number. Match. By the fourth match, I was hyperventilating. Fifth number. Match. Sixth number. Match. The screen blurred as tears filled my eyes. I blinked hard, read it again, then grabbed the ticket and held it inches from my face. Every single number matched. I stared at those words on the screen. Quote, jackpot winner, $100 million. For 10 minutes, I just sat there, frozen. Then I called the lottery office. My voice cracked as I read them the numbers. The official's tone changed instantly. Ma'am, you need to come in immediately. And don't tell Anione about this yet. I hung up and burst into tears. Not from joy, but from the crushing irony. The family that had dismissed me, that had given me this ticket as a cruel joke, had unknowingly handed me my freedom. Everything around me seemed to freeze. The noise of cars outside, the clanging of pipes in the walls, they all faded into the distance. All I could hear was the thunderous pounding of my own heart. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the ticket. Tears welled up and spilled hot down my cheeks. I broke into sobs, the sound echoing through my tiny apartment. My mind raced back to that graduation day, my mother handing me the envelope, her voice saying, "Try your luck. Maybe it'll change your life." Emily's mocking laugh in front of our friends. My father's patronizing pat on my shoulder, mistaking disdain for encouragement. I had treated this ticket as a joke, as proof of how little they valued me, and yet, here it was, opening a door to an entirely new life. I sank onto the floor, clutching the ticket as tears blurred my vision. But inside, I felt a clarity sharper than ever before. For years, I had fought to earn their recognition, to prove I was worthy of love. But in this single moment, I realized I didn't need them anymore. My life had changed, not because of their love or their investments, but because of the very thing they dismissed as worthless. Inside me, a voice rose, both aching and defiant. So, it's the very thing they scorned that has given me a new life. I sat there for a long time, letting the emotions crash over me. Shock, disbelief, joy, and a bittersweet ache. I understood then that $100 million wasn't just money. It was a chance to step out of the shadows, to truly take control of my destiny. More importantly, it was living proof that my worth had never rested in my parents' hands or in their favoritism toward Emily. My worth had always been in my resilience, my independence. And now, in this ticket, they once tossed to me like a cruel joke. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the lottery ticket for hours, unable to take my eyes off those fateful numbers. 1,000 questions spun through my head. What would I do with this money? Should I share it with my family or should I keep it for myself? The longer I thought, the more certain I became none of them deserved a single cent of it. This was my chance to rewrite my life, and it belonged to me alone. When dawn light seeped through the window, I rose and wiped away the last of my tears. I knew that from that moment on, everything had changed. The end of this story is coming in tomorrow's video.